Welcome back, gamers.
Welcome back.
It's February already.
It's the end of February. Fuck.
It's fucked up.
It's really fucked up.
Time goes fast when you've got a larval human joining the crowd.
We have a guest.
Our first guest
in the room. Yeah,
our first guest on the podcast,
which is going to piss everybody off.
Welcome to Memory Leak, the #1 podcast, top rated, top viewed, top listened, top rated on video games, video game news, video game industry, video game legends.
That happens to be called the Memory Leak.
What's your name?
My name is Geron Zaza Geron.
My name's Benjamin X2Tricity to Benjamin.
All right.
Fun fact, that was one of my AIM screen names.
Oh, okay, that's really bad.
For like a month, and then I was like, wow, this is even as a 12-year-old, I know that this is a little too fucking stupid and corny. I don't know why this came out of my wrinkles.
I've been using, that's where AIM is where FROMAN came from.
Froman?
Not Froman. Man.
Roman.
No. But
in the various iterations of such.
Yeah. And then I use the I use a couple of different names, but I use lowercase FM, but then I flipped it, and now it's the lowercase of whatever I'm using it for, and then whatever.
Froman.
No.
What are we talking about?
Child, what's going on? We good?
Yeah, one child left behind over here.
No, he's not. He got brought in here.
He did.
We can't leave him.
You got the opposite of left behind.
Yeah. Pokemon.
Pocket Monsters.
Pocket Monsters.
It's Pokemon Day.
Today is Pokemon Day.
30th anniversary?
Not
25th.
29th.
29th?
Next year is 30. Because the copyright is for
what is it, 2025? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
The copyright is 1995, but the stuff didn't start coming out until 96. So,
but they've been celebrating all that shit. Like there's the Pokemon Scarlet Violet raid event of all the red, blue, green.
Yeah.
Ish.
Like it's happy. Like they're leading up to it, and they did the Pokemon Presents today, so we could see all the shit they've got cooking up, which I appreciate was moderately low key. Yeah,
they didn't rizz it up.
Yeah, like they didn't try to make any of their like updates on things that exist.
Yeah,
seem groundbreaking. Or
yeah,
anything.
they were
just
matter of fact,
straightforward. Like this is card games.
Don't waste your time.
New game,
light
new
updates on all their shit, on all their games as a service type shit. I think for me, the #1 update had to be Pokemon Concierge Season 2.
Funny, that's funny as shit.
Have you seen the behind the scenes of that shit?
I
they
know
put
about
in work.
I haven't seen the behind the scenes.
Show.
I don't even think I watched the whole thing, but it's free on YouTube right now.
Yeah, the first 4 episodes.
But I mean, we have it.
Yeah, we have it. It's really good.
And you know what else we have now?
What?
Fucking Norbit.
Oh my god. Did she watch it yet?
Not yet. No. They're probably gonna.
I need to hear the.
I'm probably gonna get home.
She's seen it before. I'm guessing.
She's seen it a billion times.
And she's just like, I need my
I wanted
Norbit
to fucking watch it. I was like, all right, whatever.
And it's just not on any of the services.
It wasn't on anything. So
it was very funny.
Did that, and then I showed her how to use the Google whatever for the Plex. Yeah. Forget Norbit. What the fuck am I talking about? Unimportant.
Norbit is king.
Though the Shrek 5 trailer looks ugly as shit.
It's really ugly.
I hope it's just a teaser. It looks ugly as shit, and it's really a shame that they kind of leaned into all that meme shit that's happened since the Shrek then and Shrek now.
I think they kind of sadly had to.
Yeah, they have no choice.
It's just the reality of the demographics and like maximizing reach,
the attention. Yeah. My hope was that they just kind of completely, utterly ignore all of it. Completely ignore, not even a passing reference to the fact of all this shit. But they couldn't pull that off. So,
did you see the newest Puss in Boots movie?
I didn't.
It's pretty good.
Actually, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I didn't watch it with the intent. With I wasn't paying attention to it. But it was on. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like. So and they don't do any of like the pop culture shit. It's just like here's your family movie.
Itself, which needs more of. The pop culture references are fine, but it seems like everything, not
everything
just movies,
centers around it.
Everything is,
everyone's too fucking scared of TikTok.
And about to say everybody's fucking immersed in that shit. So it's
They're
like
too
that's
fucking
all
scared
anyone
of
knows.
being irrelevant.
Damn, we talking too loud, little guy?
No, he's fine. He's just trying to join in. That's right.
Yeah, there you go. You'll get to play some Pocket Monsters in a few. But Pokemon.
Pokemon Concierge fucking rules. You should watch all of it.
Yeah, there you go.
It's true artistry, and it deserves to be seen. Like,
it's crazy that they actually they're doing another season of it.
It actually is, because I think the first season genuinely cost like exorbitant amounts of money.
Yeah. Look. When people say Pokemon needs to be spending more money on the games,
yeah,
they misunderstand that the money just goes into the rest of the
right.
IP, and the games are like the cheapest thing.
Yeah,
which is completely.
We've said this before. We've said it on purpose. They're vehicles for more mons.
Yeah. So, which is fine, totally fine to me.
Honestly, I actually think this. I saw, of course, on the social media discourse, there's a lot of like ragging on the direct for a number of reasons. What do you call it? Pokemon Presents.
Yeah.
For a number of reasons, but I actually think it was one of the best ones they've had, because they do just like they acknowledge all of the fan bases.
Yeah, they touched every corner that.
Yeah, which like they really haven't done before.
Yeah.
And that coupled with the fact that like they're actually, I don't know about listening per se, but like they're slowing down.
Yeah,
they're spending more time
they have an ear
on their shit.
Yeah, they have an ear on like, hey, people don't really need this shit in a constant flow like this, especially now that they have several service games. They can just update that shit.
Exactly.
And that's good enough.
They've got their pipelines of cash.
Even Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are still being talked about. They're still getting raid events. They're still getting all this stuff, which is great for me because I just bought the game in December.
Yeah.
But I think that going forward, maybe one Pokemon game per generation, maybe two.
Yeah, right.
But you just keep it going for years. I know you need one that's of a quality that people can agree with to run that long. Because Scarlet and Violet, I know how people feel about those, but
it's interesting because we're in almost like a paradoxical culture at this point with how it engages with media and entertainment, where I think some companies are realizing that slower is healthier.
Yeah.
We were just talking recently about like how Netflix still blasts out all of its episodes for a season.
Right.
They get binged, whereas I think the other studios are realizing that doesn't last.
Yeah.
Everything that gets like squeezed out in a day, like, is basically a flash in the pan.
Right.
People binge it and then they don't talk about it.
Exactly. And it actually makes it more difficult for people like me who
just to absorb it.
I tend to, if it's something's drip fed, it's not overwhelming. I can like X-Men 97, I was on those every time they came out because they came out once a week.
Dude, that like Severance right now. Severance is like actual once in a generation, like quality and zeitgeisty
people are
TV
are together with it because it's not just all being poured out and
exactly
people are watching it in a day or
they've finally gotten back to that recapturing of like when the Seinfeld finale aired and everyone was fucking talking about it and everyone knew when it was coming on,
right? And
same thing with like Friends and like all that shit,
all the other kinds of sitcoms and whatnot.
I remember distinctly people talking when streaming was becoming a thing and people were dropping entire seasons. They're just like, people don't talk about shit anymore.
Right.
Like, there's no time to talk about that shit.
Yeah, there's no chance because instead of waiting for the next episode, you're waiting for the next entire series of a show. So you watch the show, you talk about it for like a couple, maybe a day.
Yeah.
And then you move on to the next entire series and watch that entire thing. And then,
Yeah, people are just, it helps people learn to appreciate the details of what they're watching too. Like when you have a 1 hour show, like there's a lot there to look at and unpack if the show has like some depth and some quality to it.
Yeah.
And it's fun to see people kind of like go off the deep end, like with fan theories and like, what do these things mean? And like, look at the
be coming next without having the opportunity to just be like, oh, well, this is how it ends.
Yeah, exactly.
And on top of that, it makes it easier to, this isn't about Pokemon.
No, we'll bring it back.
Yeah. The, doing it that way means for me, I will rewatch things. Like I rewatch movies pretty frequently if I like them.
No, I have to rewatch things.
And being able to rewatch an episode of a show without feeling like I'm going back.
Right.
Like I'm still current.
Yeah.
Rewatching this episode, it's way nicer. It's just more. It feels like I'm not being rushed along. And it feels like time slows down.
It feels like they're giving you time.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of
like
ironic.
Time in my life back.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to, it's not like some new series is coming out. Some people are talking about it. It's like 8 hours.
Yeah, it's a gift. It's a gift to be savored and enjoyed. Yeah. And frankly, this is what Nintendo has been so good at. Mm-hmm. They're really good at pacing. They're good at pacing their releases.
Very recently, especially. Yeah.
Their content. People, as soon as fucking Nintendo Switch Online games were like, oh, we're going to come out with one game a month or whatever. And everyone was like, oh my God, I can't fucking believe it. They could just blast it all out and we just have access to the whole catalog. Yeah. But like, same thing with like, we talked about it with Nintendo Music. Yeah, it's just having something to talk about on a weekly basis, even if it's things that like, you either had easy access to before through fucking YouTube rips or like whatever. Yeah. Like it injects some excitement and like discussion and just like material.
And it keeps those that I hate calling it this, but it keeps that community of users together.
Wait, why do you hate that?
Why do I hate?
That feels like a really normal
it's a normal way to describe it, but it's like I'm describing like Nintendo controlling the pace that people buy shit at. It's
but
not
they do.
Yeah, but it's not the same thing as people like just loving something on their own accord. It's Nintendo pulling the string on that, which is why I don't like to call it a community thing, because it's every user. No one has a choice.
Right.
But it does keep that user base at least aligned, even if they're complaining about what release a certain week, they're still talking about it. They're still checking it. They're still keeping an eye on it, and they're still waiting for the next drop to see if they're excited for that one. In which case, sometimes they are, sometimes they're not. Like this week was Super Mario Brothers 2.
Yeah, which is like very nothing to me.
Is what?
It's very nothing to me.
Yeah, it's hyper nothing to me too.
Any of the NES games, I'm gonna immediately just fucking turn off.
But look, like because this particular week was pretty nothing. Anything that comes next week will be
something.
Will be like something to me. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I mean that's what I'm saying. Is like they're the masters of pacing and their roadmap, and it's something that other companies still just quite haven't figured out.
Yeah.
How to just generate excitement out of like what little you have to potentially work with.
Right.
Which in Nintendo's case is a lot of third parties. A lot of their fucking Nintendo Directs, people will get hyped and jazzed over shit that is just going to come out on other platforms anyway.
But because it was the direct format is perfect, basically perfect, and like I said, especially recently, they've been very good at having third-party announcements in their presentations and presenting them in a way that is like, oh, this is something that everybody's wanted.
Yeah,
and then like immediately Capcom will just release the trailers for all the other versions of the game.
Right.
And it's like, oh, okay. So it's not just on Switch, but Nintendo's got the opportunity to get everybody excited about this thing, like the Capcom fighting collections and shit like that.
Yep. Yeah, and ironically, I would actually say the Pokemon Company is probably the only sort of sect of Nintendo or Nintendo's universe that has never really done this that well. And they've never really had to do it because they've just been pushing out. They've had such volumes of shit anyway.
And shit,
yeah, they have the whole IP in and of itself is like the most revenue generating, has a million fucking spin-offs and things and live service and physical, goods and commodities.
Whether it's cards, figures, anything like that.
So like they've relied on the overwhelming tidal wave of stuff that they've had to put out.
Yeah.
But now recognizing that doesn't really cut it in the year 2025, at least in terms of games and software. Games take longer to make, to be competitive and quality. It's just it's a harder world out there. Yeah. So I think they're starting to kind of learn that lesson on their own. I don't know if they're taking tips from their big daddy Nintendo, the parent company.
I'm pretty sure they're taking. I'm pretty sure somebody in within the leadership of Nintendo and the Pokemon Company and all that has probably been like, okay, so like people are still buying stuff, like it's selling great or whatever. We can kind of afford
Yeah.
to chill and take the workload off of our employees a little bit and build up these games in a way that people stick with them, so
Right.
that we can just trickle out content for the single game rather than focus on making a full new game. Or if we want to make a new game, you get side games like the Legend series now.
Yep.
So the
So in terms of like the announcements, they had all the live service games updates, so we don't really need to touch those. But the two game announcements that were interesting. The first one was Pokemon Champions, continuation of the Stadium 2, Coliseum, Battle Revolution series.
Yeah, they
showed that exact timeline,
which is crazy to me that they even bothered to like treat it that way.
Yeah,
because they could have just treated it as its own thing.
Yeah,
completely separate from that, as if it was a brand new idea. But doing this as having a battle, like the battle arena game, and you can bring Pokemon from all corners.
Yeah.
From home and
from all old games,
from new games, from your old games.
That it's actually pretty crazy. And that's another thing that sort of like acknowledges that Pokemon today is a very different Pokemon from like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Pokemon Home was a really big turning point.
Yeah.
They've reinvented that fucking wheel since the original games came out, of like the trading and the compatibility and how do we like potentially bring these things forward and
how do we monetize?
And how do we monetize
because
it?
Before, the monetizing it meant you had to get every game because you needed to chain the trades.
And then it meant you needed a subscription for Pokemon Bank.
Yeah.
Or Pokemon Transporter or whatever it was.
Yeah, whatever multiple things they had. And you can get you can subscribe to Pokemon Home, get all your old shit, and then have boxes full of Pokemon from
Home is honestly nice. Yeah. It's really nice. So the big update, they did a big 2.0 update that I think now in hindsight, I think they probably had this kind of thing in mind, which was they split all of the Pokemon that you put in there by the game that you can send them to.
Yep.
So every game, let's say you have a fucking Pikachu, you have it in Pokemon Go, you can send it to Pokemon Scarlet, Violet, Arceus, Brilliant Diamond, whatever. Let's Go Pikachu. Yeah. All of those games now have their moveset for that specific game saved in Home. So now you have this fucking catalog of every moveset you've built and customized for each game. Now, with Pokemon Champions, being able to pull back all the gimmicks, like fucking Mega Evolutions and Z moves and the fucking
whatever the fuck they call,
like the Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon Necrozma forms. Every gimmick, like that part is extremely exciting.
That being able to like finally cross over some of those mechanics is cool as shit. And
that's one of the things that felt almost like lost going into Pokemon Home is like, oh, I built this team in Pokemon Pearl or whatever. I built it to do the battle tower and I have this cool set for it. Now I bring it forward to Pokemon Home and it kind of like, it's not really for that purpose anymore. Right. I built this thing I built my Kangaskhan to be Mega Evolved. I can't Mega Evolve it. So what the fuck is the point of this Kangaskhan? It's dead weight.
Right.
So it re-injects some of that excitement for people that have been in the Pokemon ecosystem for their whole lives.
Decade, but even if they've been bringing things up since like Generation 3.
Yeah.
So, and the crazy thing, or the really smart thing they've been doing with all this Pokemon stuff is having mobile versions of it that work directly with the console versions. Like
they're too smart of a business to ignore it.
To ignore it, exactly. Like Pokemon Home is on. You can have it on your phone and you can have it on Switch, and you can use them in tandem to transfer stuff from Go to your Nintendo Switch or blah blah blah.
Yeah. Now, what I am curious about is there going to be a use case in this Pokemon Champions game for people that don't have any other Pokemon game? Like, are they going to have rental Pokemon?
I think my understanding is you will probably be able to get Pokemon in
the game.
The game,
like as winnings or something.
As
against
NPCs,
NPCs,
winnings, promos, gifts, and all that kind of thing. And I think they'll probably encourage you to do so because you'll get stuff in it's called Champions. In Champions that you cannot get in whatever game happens to be the newest at that time.
Yeah, what comes to mind for things like that is in the past couple generations, I don't know when it started, they would always sort of provide the winner's like signature Pokemon for a real life tournament.
Yep.
And they would provide it as a distribution for whatever that game was that they were competing in. But this feels like a more natural fit where they could do that distribution.
Yeah, they can do that distribution. They can do it directly and they can do it rapidly. So it's not like you have to jump through hoops. You just kind of jump through a hoop.
I also wonder if they're going to make this sort of like the standard for competitive play.
That's what I'm wondering. Because my thought is that they would want to use the latest game to do that. But I think if anything, they could probably use this as like a different sort of format for that.
Yeah.
And I think in that particular case, you have a situation where you just have players that are Pokemon champions focused and then players that are Pokemon fucking
you could do that. The one risk with that is you start to dilute the pool of like what players are going to be focusing on. Because that's another one of the benefits of always focusing on the latest game is it's like, even if you really liked the old formats and would prefer them, like it's not an option. Like you have to move on or just stop playing.
Yeah, you have to play the new rule set.
Yeah,
which is how card games work. With it's a lot of games work that way, where you have to be at the latest if you want to compete, or not at all.
Now, potential benefit would be, if they actually do focus all the competitive stuff on champions, then they can basically like further bisect the team developing so that like they can just have resources dedicated on champions and keeping champions up, and if they rotate rule sets or whatever, they don't have to also engage the team working on like the main game.
The main game can just continue doing
do story or single player type stuff.
And
it also makes me wonder if they're able to do that and leverage the resources and budget them based on how successful those different parts of the game are doing. Does this pave the way to eventually get Battle Tower back?
Yeah, and is like
this is my cope.
This be Battle Tower?
Yeah, like could there be a Battle Tower format?
And what could it
for single player? Please,
could they simply and easily integrate this, be able to launch Pokemon Champions from the newest game, or something?
If they add Battle Tower to Pokemon Champions, it's instant GOAT. Like Platinum still has the best Battle Tower, just because it has the 5 different like modes. It has it has variety. It has like actual moveset. Like it's the most thought out version, and then they just fucking kept having to abandon it probably because of time constraints.
Right. There was the benefit of the Platinum is that it was that was the last third version where it's basically the same game, and it's one third version rather than
Black 2 White 2
Ultra
Sun, Ultra Moon.
X and Y didn't have one.
It would be really fucking cool if they actually do have variety on like single player.
Yeah.
Because my personal favorite of the Battle Tower variants was there was a mode that was almost like a roguelike where you start with a pair of 3 pre-made Pokemon.
Yeah.
But the rental tower, I don't remember what it was fucking called.
But the tower that let you rent specific Pokemon.
You'd start with 3 Pokemon that they give you, and it's like, here's your team, your ragtag team of random Pokemon we're going to give you. You got to find a way to make this trio work. And then after every however many fights, 5 fights or something, you get the option to trade one out.
Oh, you cycle one out,
Yeah, so it's like, here's 3 more. You can pick one to like augment your team.
Yeah.
And the enemies would get harder, and they'd be smarter, and they'd have more like synergy.
Yeah.
Bring that shit back. That shit was so tight. It was so fun to do that.
My hope is that because I believe they sucked in Ilka, who's making champions.
Yeah.
And they're called, I forgot what they're called. They're called Pokemon something. They're not called
Pokeworks.
Pokeworks, that's right.
Yeah.
Or Pokemon Works.
One of those. Works.
They are the ones that will probably be given all of the extra shit so that the main team can work on the story of the game, the world of the game, and the like maybe new rule set, the new Pokemon, and all of that. So if like what you're saying, if the game itself, if the base game it doesn't have those features then can be part of Champions, and you can use what you built up in the new game, whatever new game it happens to be at that point, and use it in Champions and continue playing with people that may be on their phone or maybe on, may not be on console, but still interact with Pokemon.
Yep.
Which means that, like, one of my things about Pokemon Go was that it didn't feel like there was a point to anything.
Yeah.
Like,
that's fair.
After I got things that I wanted,
it's just a treadmill.
It's literally a treadmill. Like, you can literally, but which is completely fine. But at a certain point, I was like, why play this? I can just take a walk.
It is funny that they added a competitive, like, ranked battle mode. Like that's a thing now.
In Go?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know.
It's been there for a couple years now. They do it at their big
what
are they fucking called?
The get-togethers, the
like
gathering of
nationals.
Yeah,
I don't know what they call it.
But I hate the battle system in Go. I hate it.
Yeah, no,
that like mashy, that weird you mash the screen and shit. And like I don't feel like I have the moves I have on these Pokemon matter.
Right.
But if they make them matter by having you, like, for someone like maybe wants to get something in Pokemon Go and then move it over to Champions,
and
then move it over to whatever else too. It's like, oh, now there's a purpose. Now
right.
And
it's kind of
set.
It's kind of been that way. Like I always wanted to have a living dex.
Yeah.
And with Go, I actually finally did it.
Can do it. Yeah.
It wasn't even so much that I could do it. I think it was such an overwhelming task.
Oh, okay.
But with Go, it's just like you just squirt out a ball and you get a Pokemon.
You just throw the ball.
And like after a couple years of it having been out and like randomly playing here and there between bus stops or something, going to work, whatever. I had 400 of the Pokemon, and I was like, oh, I can just dump these into home, and that's my starting point.
Yeah.
And that made it a lot more feasible because then like when Sword and Shield came out and Let's Go and Scarlet, and I played through all those, and I just like randomly caught whatever I found. I slowly chipped away at it. And so now I actually have a living dex, except for some of the DLC fucking Violet specific idiots.
Whatever.
But so like that was one of the really cool things about Home in the early days as well, is that integration with Pokemon Go. What's weird about it though is like for whatever reason in Home, they flag when it's a Pokemon Go Pokemon. Like specifically Go. It's like this is special. You can't bring this to your normal game until you've caught this Pokemon before. Like, there's all these weird restrictions. Yeah, like in Scarlet and Violet, you can't bring in a Pokemon that you got in Pokemon Go until you've caught that same Pokemon or have it registered in your Pokedex in the base game. You can't make it the first time. Yeah, you can't register your Pokedex from Pokemon Go.
You have to have had it, or you have to have seen it?
I don't know.
Because I feel like I moved some stuff from Go to Scarlet without having it. Like, the reason I moved in the first place is because I didn't have it. I guess I could.
It. I'm pretty sure you can't. You just straight up can't move it unless you have it. Maybe it's seen it, but either way, it just had these weird restrictions.
Because I moved.
There's also just some games you can't move.
My Mewtwo was from X. Never mind.
Yeah, there's just weird things around the Pokemon and that come from Pokemon Go,
which makes sense to me. I think
it does. It's such a different game.
It's to keep you from just kind of farming everything with the easiness of Go, and then completely undo the challenge of the main game.
Now, one of the last things that came to mind as I was looking at it, that is also, in my opinion, one of the more untouched realms of competitive Pokemon is Pokemon Showdown.
Yeah. People were talking about that one.
The ever-present Pokemon Simulator fan game.
It's a fan production.
That, frankly, is well done in the sense that like they faithfully recreate the mechanics of every Pokemon game.
Yeah.
Exactly what Champions is trying to do, essentially.
Exactly, yeah.
And they have all sorts of like rule sets and all sorts of things like that. So I'm wondering if, they're obviously never going to get it to the point where like you can just create like it's a fucking character sheet, Pokemon from scratch. But I have to wonder if they're going to have some kind of like lab feature.
I could see there being
where it's like test out a Pokemon, like adjust its stats just for like this like lab
I could see
mode.
Easily competitive simulator or something like that.
Yeah, like
just
a competitive simulator.
Very easy thing that they could do and have like a narrative, or not a narrative, but like an in-universe.
Yeah, I was surprised they had never done that, considering how long Showdown has been like the meta tool for competitive Pokemon players. Like every competitive Pokemon player that is like has been successful has used Showdown in some number of capacities. So it's clearly an untapped sphere of that, just like the Pokemon competitive community.
It's interesting that Showdown has been allowed to exist as long as it
that
has
too.
been. And I think it's because they know that that actually really benefits the people playing. Like,
it's like the only way they can get reasonable practice.
Because that is basically the battle simulator. That's where people are like, oh, okay, this is a build that I can use, and then figure out how to make that work in the game.
Yeah, because it's always been. I mean, actually, until probably Sword and Shield, it was very time consuming to build a full team.
Yeah.
So like to actually like test and tweak and do all sorts of things, like, oh, actually, let me drop 4 EVs here and add 4 EVs there. It's like, you have to get the little berry, and then you're down 10 EVs, and then you have to like, there's so many steps and so much time. Whereas with something like a simulator, you just go number down, number up.
You just literally turn knobs.
Yeah. So from the practice perspective, it's definitely a gap in that, if you're just looking at the games.
Yeah.
Now, the last announcement, right? Was there anything else you wanted to say on Champions?
No. There's nothing specific. Champions is a really good idea. I'm glad that exists. I'm probably going to play it. And we did kind of skip over the live service stuff, but just to iterate, even Pokemon Sleep's getting updates. Which
I saw Darkrai, Darkrai is kind of like ominous and hilarious because it's like the Pokemon that like permanently puts you to sleep.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like the Pokemon that puts you into a fucking coma.
Like, are they trying to?
I was like, oh, this is kind of. It's funny, but kind of weird.
I think the support for everything they're doing is great, and I do know that there are people that are. Before we talk about the next thing, at least, I do know there are people that saw this and are like probably frothing because the old, like, there's no NSO Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, Silver. I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think it's time to stop. Like,
I love the laziness of 4chan leaks these days.
Yeah.
One of them was about how there's going to be like a collection you can buy.
Like, that's ridiculous. That's if you've been paying any attention, you know that's completely utterly ridiculous.
The only thing that's not ridiculous about that specific concept of like a purchased collection that you could buy was the fact that you could buy those games on 3DS, which frankly surprised me that they ever did that to begin with.
That needs to be like established that was a one-time thing.
It was cool though.
Yeah,
I had never played Crystal, and now I have it.
Now you have it. Yeah, you have a digital version of Crystal that you can also use, like, link
still use
all the
Pokemon
link features
Bank
and shit
for now.
And yeah, that's true. I think a lot of people don't consider how much the work that went into making those function on the 3DS. Right. And the 3DS was the first time that there was a Game Boy Virtual Console, so there was no way they were going to skip that.
Right.
But they probably also have the numbers, and they probably know, like, this investment that we put into it. They sold probably okay, but I assume if they sold better than okay, we'd continue to see them be re-released. And it's just
hard to say because like they've always been so anal about like the balance of getting Pokemon, and I think blasting out the ability to have all those versions cheaply for the first 2 generations probably like devalues the Pokemon in those first 2 generations and making it easier to get them. Because they've always been kind of weird about that.
Yeah,
it's like,
they have been.
What Pokemon can you get in which generation, and like the rarity of them.
And I know they use those older generation Pokemon as like the carrot on a stick for a lot of new games. Like, a lot of the newer games, especially the service games, will start with Kanto shit.
Always
front and center.
Fucking Mewtwo, dude.
Mewtwo, Mew, all that stuff will just kind of get you to walk through the door. So then when they start releasing shit you don't, like, the older players don't know, at least they're already in.
Right.
So they can become familiar with that new stuff. But they always start you with that, the 150 at least.
Yeah.
And like, I don't disagree with that as an idea either. Like, I think like, those old games are great for the sake of knowing
what
Pokemon used to be, but like, you think, not you, but people think Scarlet Violet and all that shit is buggy as hell now. That Pokemon was
buggy
junk.
Yeah,
it was junk code. It was hardly held together. I think the style and the novelty of it is what kept it alive. And
for sure.
If we're talking about keeping, like, a lot of Japanese RPG franchises hold on to tradition, and part of that tradition with Pokemon, in my opinion, is being kind of janky. So it's like, how much of that jank are you willing to let people take in if they act like this when?
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to talk about, sort of like the Gateway Kanto phenomenon, they already have that on Switch with the Let's Go games.
Yeah, Let's Go is just a remake.
So there's really no
Yellow.
There's like thinking about the devaluing of those Pokemon. Yeah. You can like quote already get them.
Yeah.
In a game on the Switch, a modern game on the Switch, that's more expensive than you would have to pay for just red and blue.
Right.
So, yeah, I think a lot of that probably is what leads to them not really re-releasing them.
Yeah, to reach for that stuff. So, what was the last thing that you were gonna?
Pokemon Zaza.
Yeah, Pokemon Legends ZA. It looks like a lot of fun. The combat looks like a lot of fun.
The combat looks great.
That real time, like,
that looks like a genuine huge step forward from Legends Arceus, which is funny because I saw so many fucking comments being like, 1 step forward, 100 steps back, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's fucking Xenoblade now. They've got the little timers on the fucking icons. That's good shit.
Compare it to Xenoblade. And it even looks like the Xenoblade 2 interface in that regard.
It's actually even like a step more actiony than Xenoblade because of the whole emphasis on like being able to dodge,
keeping up where the like real position, not just positioning for your moves, but positioning for their moves, so you can like.
Which that's fucking stuff. Exciting.
Yeah, it looks cool.
That was the one. My actual one complaint about Arceus is that they didn't go far enough on the innovation of the gameplay.
Like once you get into the combat, it's Pokemon combat.
It's very similar to Pokemon. They have some things in Arceus about like, oh, you can do like strong attack, quick attack, which was like, it was cool, and that was like novel, and you could still like walk around the battlefield.
Yeah, you could walk around.
But like, it was mostly cosmetic.
Yeah.
So seeing them like take that next step, it's like, we're gonna fucking change it up. It is really cool to see.
And I people might not agree with me on this, but I kind of like that the Lumio City, all the stuff they showed, is like flattened out.
What do you mean by flattened out?
It just the way the gameplay is, or there wasn't really any slopes in those combat situations they showed and everything.
That's probably intentional.
They flattened it, they flattened it out and made it feel. It just felt cleaner. Which I
am curious though, because again, like to the whole point of like feeling cleaner and just like looking better and feeling more like a real game, a cohesive game with cohesive gameplay. I'm curious to see how they handle like the weird buildings.
Yeah.
Because like there was one battle they showed, it was a tiny little sliver of a building with like a little bridge.
Yeah.
And I was like, that looks kind of awkward to like try to dodge around.
Yeah.
So it's like, am I gonna be able to fall off? Is it gonna have a weird invisible barrier? Like,
like what
tough to say.
Systems are they gonna have in place for that, or is it just gonna be like a taco stage in Virtua Fighter, which you don't know anything about? So.
Jury's out for me on the topography of the landscape.
Yeah.
Because like on the one hand, I like that it's different.
Yeah.
Because there were no cities in Arceus at all. It was all pure nature.
All, like nature and like little camps, right?
Yeah, I mean there were little
like
camps, but the camp was literally just like an NPC to go and like change your shit out. So I appreciate the variety. The city kind of looks samey to me. It looks like it'll get old from a locale perspective.
Yeah.
Because that was another thing. Like, Arceus was all naturey, but like the biomes were very different.
Yeah.
And it made the game feel fresh in every area you went to.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough to say how that's going to shake out with just having like little wild areas in each section of the city.
Everything's a wild area where the Pokemon are kind of like just in the city, which is I like.
It's fine.
Like
it's fine.
Yeah,
it's something they've been leaning on now for a couple iterations.
That was in Sword and Shield.
It was in Sword and Shield. Yeah. It was very heavily in the DLC for Scarlet and Violet.
Oh, I didn't know
Even the base Scarlet and Violet map is like kind of like that. You got kind of the 4 quadrants.
Yeah.
You got like ice area and then like pretty kind of rough like direct. You walk across a line and now you're in like a grassland.
Yeah.
The Blueberry DLC literally says that. They're like, oh, these are biomes that are like scientifically curated and we have a wall that separates them and you just jump across the wall.
Yeah. Okay.
So like they've just been leaning on this idea of like give basic circle and then just chunk it up without any kind of like needing to worry about the seamless
hiding the seams. I think in part of that's because it's on the original Switch.
Yeah, I mean, regarding the performance, it's impossible to say with just the gameplay footage we got. Art style wise, I would say it looks okay. I think it looks better.
I think it looks good. I think the game is a nice looking game.
I think it looks fine. I think it looks better. I think they've clearly learned from Scarlet and Violet. I definitely think it looks better than Scarlet and Violet, just from the perspective of like the polygons, the optimization, things like that.
Yeah.
But even just like the textures are less weird to me.
Right.
Scarlet and Violet, they tried really hard to almost add like real texture in ways that didn't really make sense to me. They like kind of like have this weird muddy clay feeling.
Yeah, Scarlet and Violet has a lot of like textures that just show up low res, and a lot of them that some of the higher res stuff, they're small enough that you can see them just tiled across big mountains.
Exactly.
Mountainsides and stuff like that. And it's like whatever, I don't mind. I'm not too worried about that with a Pokemon game, but
and I think there's still a little bit of that present. Like there's still very flat polygons with just like some texturing on it.
Right.
So I think they've gotten better. I think it's probably the best looking of the Switch Pokemon games.
Yeah, at this point.
But you could make an argument like Arceus benefit from the simplicity. I actually think in terms of just general style, I think I like Arceus a little bit more.
Yeah.
ZA, I like more stylistically than Sword and Shield and Scarlet Violet, but it still feels like, I don't know if soulless is the right word, but it's like it's almost like art style-less. It's almost like it doesn't have an art style.
It feels a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? A little sterilized.
Yeah, sterilized is probably the right word. Yeah. It's like they took the concept art and they just like dropped it into the game with like basic light maps and like not really any thought in terms of like what it should look like in motion.
I am okay with that if it means the game feels clean.
100%.
Too, you know? So,
if the gameplay looks as fun as it's been advertised, I will 100% overlook any visual, dullness.
Yeah, and it being a Switch 1 game, I think they finally might be understanding how to make an HD game, despite it being how many fucking years. But I mean, the same deal happened with Pokemon Black and White. I think maybe Black and White too, specifically.
Those are sprite based.
Some of the but I'm saying those came out after the 3DS did. The ones
Black 2, White 2 did.
Black 2, White 2 came out after. Yeah, so they used like some of the DSi features, but like kind of fitted them to work on the 3DS. Not to mention the 3DS had a couple of apps that interacted with the game too, which I think that's the way to do it. The older platform, people still on that can still enjoy the game, to its fullest, and people on the newer platform can still like get maybe a little bit of benefit from doing so, but they're not like so far ahead of it. Not to mention the developers aren't reaching for something that they don't know how to, they don't know what to do with when they get
and
there.
I do think that's actually part of the decision to do it in Lumio City. I think it means from like a rendering perspective, it probably makes their jobs easier.
Yeah, it's literally a middle point and then
they're
radius
and they're blocking all the shit. Yeah, they're blocking all the shit that they don't want you to see because.
And I don't mind that.
Yeah, so, no, that's clever design.
Yeah,
it's
using what they've got to make it.
I am a little curious about just the naming of Legends because it doesn't actually look like it takes place in the past like Arceus did.
Yeah.
When I first saw the trailer, and this is probably just me being stupid, I kind of had the perception that it was going to be like when the city was first being built, so like before the events of X and Y. But it's very obvious from this trailer that it's after X and Y. It's like a sequel.
Is it after or is it just before?
It has to be after because of Az having his little Floette, who he gets in X and Y, and he's like, I haven't seen my Pokemon in 3,000 years, so it's like, it's very, very significantly after the events of X and Y.
Then again,
so it's almost just like why even call it that? Maybe
it's like what happened as a result.
I did see a fun headcanon thing where it's like, what if it's somebody from the past being transported to the future? Kind of like a reverse of what the original game was.
Yeah, and that's honestly probably
that'd be cool.
Probably what it's going to be.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Like at that point, it's like, all right.
Yeah.
Do what you want to do.
Like, this is how everything's gonna be, man. I'm fucking, and then you come back, you're like, what the fuck, I'm fucked up, kill me.
That would fuck someone up.
Yeah, that would.
If we were transported fucking 1,000 years in the past to like live out the rest of our lives.
Yeah, just like,
it's like, wow, I don't have TikTok.
Oh, all right. That's the end of the fucking episode. So
is that it?
I mean, that's basically it.
Are you since it's not coming out till the end of 2025, which I actually thought was kind of interesting and kind of surprising. Yeah. I was expecting it to be more of like early Switch 2 launch.
I was thinking they would say it was coming out like this summer or something.
Yeah, like June.
Yeah.
End of 2025. Honestly, I'm happy that they're giving it time to bake.
Yeah.
Let it bake by all means.
Yeah, please just like work it all out.
That being said, this is literally the longest period we've gone without a main series Pokemon game.
Yeah, which is
no, it's fine. It's just it's a milestone. It's a landmark occurrence here.
Yeah, like even Pokemon Red and Blue, at least in the U.S. Yellow came out a year after that, and then in 2001, in 2000, so 2 years after that was Gold and Silver. So it's always been paced like that.
Are you, because of that, are you going to get the Legends Arceus?
I'm interested in it, for sure.
I think it's worth playing.
I think by the time
it's clear
comes
that
out,
it's still going to be different enough that it's going to warrant existing. Yeah. It's like not just going to be flat out replaced.
Yeah. I think I'm going to, by the time it comes out, I'll be like reinterested in buying a Pokemon game fresh, especially because I haven't bought one at launch in years and years and years. So yeah, I'm interested in it, especially because even I liked X and Y. I liked that region. Diamond and Pearl, not that I didn't like that region for one thing or another. I thought those games were really slow, and it kind of represents
original Diamond and Pearl, completely agree. Yeah. The first thing I think of when I think of playing Pearl at launch was playing it on the fucking bus on an orchestra trip.
Yeah.
Like I got this specific memory where everyone was fucking playing it.
Yeah.
Which was fun at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the pacing of the original games and the Pokemon selection, because I'm stupid and I'm weak brained. I've been playing Brilliant Diamond.
Oh, funny.
Just for the fun of it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
No, what I mean by that is like I wasn't even really that interested in it. I just wanted to play it for no real reason.
Yeah, I got you.
But it's funny playing through that game and realizing all the problems that it has.
Yeah.
But it's on that, like, I actually think it looks quite good. I actually really like the art style of Brilliant Diamond. People hated on it.
I like in battles it looks really good. I don't like those old
the chibi.
Like,
I don't mind the chibi.
They're too
chib?
Too much for me. Yeah.
Let's go ahead some more reasonable chibi style.
Let's go.
They're a little bit
more like the DS game.
Yeah.
So I think that's the sweet spot for that kind of style.
Yeah, I think so too. You can have your Pokemon follow you.
Oh,
always nice.
Yeah, that should be in every
it really should. It's weird that it's not in a lot of the games.
Yeah.
Legends Arceus lets you have all 6 of them.
All 6 of them just out.
Really funny. Fucking powwowing.
Fucking at least Scarlet and Violet let you do that thing.
There's a functional component to that.
Right.
But where was I going with this? Oh, but I do think Arceus like weirdly makes those games better. Like it makes you feel better about them.
Yeah.
Just by having like more lore, seeing sort of like the development of the areas that you are sort of familiar with, and you can kind of put it together. You can kind of see it.
Places, but
it feels like a completely fresh thing. Like if you were to tell people that like, oh, this is a completely different region, they would probably would not think twice.
It's like Far Cry Primal.
Yeah, but like making those connections in your head, whether it's based on just like the names of the areas or the Pokemon that are in them, or like little items that you get that it's like, oh, I kind of remember this like cave and going over here and like getting the item in this spot. And so like it's cool that this is still in there in a 3D area.
Yeah.
So like there's little things like that.
Yeah.
And it makes you like, especially because like I hadn't played Brilliant Diamond before playing Legends Arceus. So only having those distant memories of Diamond and Pearl was like fond.
Yeah.
It was a very fond experience. Right. So I think it's worth it, long story short.
Yeah.
It's also funny because, and I mentioned this when I first talked about it, is I think it's the only Pokemon game you can get all the Pokemon in it because there's no second version.
Yeah. On that particular note, I know I've heard people say like they should stop doing 2 versions. And I'm like, no, they shouldn't stop doing 2 versions. The reason they have 2 versions One, it makes more money, and two, it's part of the way the games work.
It's part of the game culture.
You're not really supposed to buy both. You're supposed to play one
and trade.
Trade with other people that have the other one.
That trading is such a big part of the identity of Pokemon.
Yeah, and it's become easier and easier to do.
Yeah.
That it's
fucking
like
Wonder Box and just throwing a Pokemon up in the GTS.
Yeah, and you don't need a cable. Yeah. You don't need anything. It's all wireless. It's all, you can do it without, you don't have to be in a Pokemon Center or any of that shit anymore. Or do you? No, you don't. You don't have to in the newest games. But like I think having these one single version side games that still have that are still considered mainline.
Yeah, like it's home integrated.
It's cool to have that.
Yeah.
And I think that, as well as the two split games
for the main series,
should all exist. Because it's like you get the experience with the trading and the double versions like the classic games, and then everyone has this integrated experience with this, with whatever Legends game. And it's like, oh, okay, that's cool, and I can get Pokemon here that I couldn't get otherwise. And then,
it's good.
You just have a swath of unique experiences that the Pokemon gives you, rather than one singular thing. Yeah,
it's good. It's good stuff, man. And I think all to sort of bring this all the way back around, I think by letting them bake their games a little bit more and giving people a little bit more breathing room between the games, I think it's actually going to generate more buzz for Gen 10 than it would have otherwise been.
Yeah.
Partially because Scarlet and Violet was so mixed.
Yeah, the people's feelings on it, especially at launch. Yeah.
Yeah, but also because now people will be clamoring.
People will be
like, I need more. Dudes. I need more dudes to find.
More stuff. I need more Pokemon to see. I need that waiting time is what lets people kind of cool down, and then ramp them back up. The next generation of Pokemon is happening, and it's different. It's obviously different from the one that you just had, rather than being kind of sort of taking features from that and being now these are the ones we're going to emphasize in this game.
And one last thought as to why that's even more okay now than ever in the past is I think in the past, because of both where gaming was in general and where Pokemon fit into culture, there was always a fear and actually probably a real risk of Pokemon becoming sort of just a fad.
Yeah.
I remember very specifically, I didn't get Gen 3 because I thought it was too cool for Pokemon. Yeah,
and I didn't get Gen 3 because I didn't like the font.
No, I mean, there's a lot of reasons not like Gen 3.
That's what I'm saying. But
I didn't like Groudon Kyogre. I was like, these guys' designs are fucking whack.
That's what, a lot of us, people our age, skipped that because we were 13.
Yeah, we were at that fucking age.
All right.
They're trying too hard now.
And we were the exact audience. They figured out we should remake the first couple. Yeah. And they're like, oh,
Fire Red, Leaf Green.
Yeah, exactly. And then I bought into Gen 3 with those.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay.
I actually bought Emerald. I did. I remember buying Emerald very specifically because
that came out after Fire Red, Leaf Green. That came out in 2005.
Yeah, that was my re-entry back into the franchise after one fucking year.
Yeah, just a couple of years exactly.
So I think that was one inflection point. The other big one was right before Pokemon Go came out. I think they were basically seeing that second sort of fall off.
Yeah. The
2016. At that point, it would have been Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, which again, Gen 3 is generally mixed in terms of how people feel about it. Right. Too much water.
Yeah.
All the shit like that.
But by remaking those games, that was when it got to the point where they are capturing the kids that were born after 2000. Yeah,
but I think Pokemon Go really kind of kicked it into a inflection point.
Yeah.
It was past the point of no return. It was too big to fail.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be the same again with fucking cards being fucking bought out by poachers.
The situation is so
it's crazy, dude.
Up.
But just there's adults that are fully in Pokemon, and that right there is a sign that it's never going away.
It's
never going away. So they can finally feel confident that they can take their foot off the brakes. Yeah. And they're not going to lose huge amounts of money and have to fire off a bunch of their staff.
Yeah. It's I hate this comparison, but it's like a Mickey Mouse situation. Even if it's not the most popular thing all the time, it isn't going anywhere.
Right.
It still fuels things that are that might be elevated around it and stuff like that. So
yeah. All right, I think we exhausted the 19-minute presentation.
Yeah, there you go.
Do you have a Higher Fans?
No,
I don't either. I have a fucking fan right here. I need to feed.
Yeah, I know. Do we have a Higher Fans? Oh, can I know how long have we been going for?
Do it.
There's not a Higher Fans.
Is it a Fire Fans? What would be the first Pokemon game if you were to have a child that you would want him to play? Would you want him to just play the newest one? Would you want him to play one that maybe you grew up with, or
I'd rather than play the newest one.
Just whatever the newest one is.
Yeah, because the newest, I want them to have their own experience.
I was thinking Let's Go might be a good first one, just because it's intended to be such a first one. It's so simplified.
But my thing
it's
is,
hard to say what it's going to look like in like six years, though.
Exactly. I wouldn't want to put my first experience onto somebody else. Like I'm not going to be like, you have to play the Game Boy game before you can play all this.
No, and that's why I was thinking like Let's Go is cool because it does that. Like it very intentionally does that for like parents at that time,
right?
Because it's just Gen 1,
right?
But again,
like in
don't need to force it,
right? And I'd rather them be up to date and be able to interact with all the other kids that are playing the newest game,
right?
Because that's what Pokemon is about. I don't want them going back
and being the weird kids,
and then being the one that's like, oh, I played blah blah blah. It's like, I don't care that you played. I don't care that you played.
Fucking what is that?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what's the point? Because they're eventually going to need to play the new game anyway, and then they're going to be behind on it. But if they show interest in other Pokemon games, then I'll be like, oh, we have, the Game Boy Advance, we have the N64, we have the GameCube, all whatever. So yeah, it would be the newest game, but if it weren't just the newest game, I'd probably let them get a taste of the Pokemon themselves by making them play both Snap games.
That's a good option.
Yeah, like you get to see the Pokemon, but you don't have to become like intimately familiar with them.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, when you start playing the games, it's like maybe you have a favorite already because you've seen them, but now you know how they work, kind of thing.
That's fun. That's a good choice.
He's listening to what's about to happen.
What's about to happen?
How you?
His future?
Yeah, how you're gonna make him get into this stuff if he's
not
at all
listening
interested?
To anything.
Huh?
He's not listening to anything.
Breathing. But I was gonna say, just real quick, the Fatal Fury beta was this weekend.
Okay.
We should talk. I'll talk about it a little more next time. But I just want to say, I know all the YouTubers have gotten to it, so it's gonna sound like I'm parroting, but I've actually had these thoughts since the beta started. The interface is fucked up, and that interface being fucked up, like Fatal Fury is cool, and this is like the grand return of Fatal Fury. The gameplay is fine. I don't think the gameplay is that amazing.
But isn't an interface like one of the easiest things you can fix?
It's a beta, and it's something the game comes out in a couple of months. The problem with it is that the fact that they thought this was at all okay in the first place is worrisome, because now the game feels really cheap to me.
Yeah.
And I was hoping it wouldn't feel cheap. I was hoping it would feel like maybe not necessarily up to the same standard as Street Fighter 6, because it obviously has a lot of money and time put into it. But at least feel like they're not doing it just because. They're doing it because they really want to. And some of it feels
obligatory.
Like they're doing it in an obligatory way. Like, oh, well, now people are playing these games, and because, the Saudi Arabian prince has his hands on SNK, it feels like they're kind of being made to do it.
Yeah,
and
they probably are. Oops.
And I don't really appreciate that. So I actually this beta has me resenting the game right now a little bit. And I wish that didn't happen. And that's why a lot of devs don't do demos anymore, because they don't want you to resent the game before it comes out.
That's funny.
Though we are getting more demos than we have been.
Nintendo's actually been doing a lot of demos.
Nintendo doing demos. Capcom does demos. A lot of companies
Square Enix fucking does a shit ton of demos.
Yeah. I hope that people find like the game, but I think with fighting games, especially because they're one-on-one, if your player base shrinks down too much, then the game's done.
The game is actually dead.
And it's like there's a ton of systems stacked on each other. But if this becomes like a fucking laptop next to the fucking bathroom kind of game, it'll be great for the people that play it, but I'm gonna be pissed as shit mainly because I would have liked Fatal Fury, which comes before King of Fighters, comes before it comes before King of Fighters. I think it comes after Art of Fighting. Maybe, I don't know.
Is Terry in Fatal Fury?
That's
where he
Fury
comes
is
from?
Terry's game. Yeah.
Okay, and
like
the King of Fighters is more of a compilation.
The King of
game?
Fighters is a
not compilation,
crossover game.
Crossover, yeah.
Yeah. And I was hoping that this would help that original Fatal Fury. Well, that original Fatal Fury series exist again.
Yeah.
In a bigger way, but I think the same thing that happens with a lot of SNK's games is going to happen, where people play it a lot and they talk about it for a couple of months, and then
it's got
everyone
kind of film over it.
Yeah, everyone kind of figures things out. And it's like, oh, we don't need to use this system. We don't need to use that system. But people have already figured out the more difficult combos do less damage. And it's like, that's fine, but it's hard to get excited for a game that just feels like it's from 2000. At least right now. Like, unintentionally feels like it's from 2008. Because at that point, they should have just made this in 2008.
Feels like it was made by Grums.
By what?
By Grums.
Oh, no, it doesn't. All right. Now, well, since you did that, we got to end. We'll talk about it next time. But rattle off where you can find this.
All right. You like this shit? We're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, and YouTube. Shoot us an email at memoryleaguepodcast@gmail.com. We're here. We're queer. We're over there. That's it.
That's it.